Okay.
Okay,
Go ahead.
we are here with Terrence Boggs, and he is running for the Republican County Chair. It's December 28th, 2017. I'm John Wirtz. With me is Larry Rogers, James Byers, Dell Fessenden, and Bob Bagley. And Terrence, as we discussed, go ahead and start with your 5-minute opening, and then we'll go around the table with the Q&A.
Okay, my name's Terrence Boggs. I'm running for the Montgomery County Chair position. There are several issues I'm running on. First of all, I believe that the county needs to be updated in terms of the way we use technology, social media, tools like that. We have a number of reasons for that. For the last 8 or 9 years, basically, especially under President Obama, there's been a great challenge in the way he uses social media tools. In fact, he became a master at it, and still is. Now that he's out of office, he's still sending out messages using YouTube and other things to attack the president. The Republican Party, on the other hand, got behind the growth on that. Clinton was the first eye-opener. Obama came along. We released even more. Obama had a huge national database, and two, was using it to a great extent through Facebook, through YouTube messaging. Not so much Twitter. Our current president is showing that can be used to great advantage. But the point is that the Republican Party first nationally started equipping itself through things like Nation Builder and some of the other tools they brought along. And then statewide, Governor Abbott adopted many of those tools in his run. Last time around, I had the privilege of working with people who were doing the block walking and showed me some of those tools as I went through my own precinct. Unfortunately, it's on a precinct-by-precinct basis as to how much they'll adopt those kinds of tools. That is, it's not mandatory. Luckily, we live in a state where people are part-time legislators and we don't force people to do a whole lot. Maybe more than they should, but not a great deal. And the point is that our county has chosen, up to this point, essentially used the same methods as probably used for the last 50 or so years. And that is, when I asked for first thing I did, were several things I did when I first arrived. Number one, I registered immediately to vote. I hadn't been here a week and we'd already registered to vote. Second thing I did, even though I couldn't run as a precinct chair, I immediately asked for the precinct list. I've been a precinct chair for at least 6 years or more, precinct judge also. I'm used to working in precincts, so I said I want the list, so I actually called elections and asked for it. What I was given was an Excel spreadsheet with not a whole lot on it. No voting records, nothing, just addresses and names. And I looked at it and said, okay, I haven't seen that in a long time. Because what I'm used to having is technology where I can pull up on my cell phone a map of my precinct, house by house. I know the demographic, who's in it, the age range, how they voted in 2016, whether straight Dem, straight Republican. It's all at my fingertips. And suddenly all I was given is a Excel spreadsheet with no information other than a name and an address. No email, no phone numbers, nothing. So I realized it was going to be a different ballgame in Montgomery County. The more I've been here, the more I've realized that it is true, that the technology is way behind. We don't have a Facebook page that's operable. We don't use, for instance, if I were the current chair, I would have sent a Christmas message to everybody in the Republican Party, just to let them know that we appreciate them. We should be the welcome wagon for the people here. I didn't get a message from anything. And so my point is there's a lot of improvement. Second of all, messaging. There was a survey that came out recently that said that 50% of all millennials believe that socialism is the answer for our current country's problems. That's an issue with me. What that means is we're doing a really poor job of messaging, using the media to come up with the answers why that's not true. We need groups that are young Republicans. I know there is one here. I have a suspicion is not using all the tools that they can use to do that sort of outreach. So my point is that things need to be developed to be able to reach the youth. If you have a son, daughter, anybody that's voting age, the Republican Party should be there right with him in the high school and the college, messaging them, inviting them to activities where they can come and be a part of us. That needs to be improved greatly. And again, that goes through YouTube, Instagram, Facebook page, YouTube page, all of that. All of which I have, by the way. I have my own Instagram page. My Twitter account's 1,500. My Facebook is going on 3,000. I have an Instagram page. So I'm familiar with that, but the point is I suspect the current chair is not. The third thing is that once you are the candidate, the party should go to the furthest extent to support you, both monetarily and with resources. Every candidate should not have to pay a lot of money in order to get a database in order to go out and block walk. The party has that information that should be made available to them. Money should be made to them, fundraisers should be done, because these are our candidates, we need to back them 1,000%. And one of our jobs is getting them the money to help them run, so that they know not just the party backs them, but the whole community backs them. Because Montgomery County is a Republican county, but you get the strange feeling you're on your own when you run. And that needs to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, in the opening, under the general category, this is a Republican primary race. Do you promise if elected to abide by the RPT platform? And you said fully. I will make the platform the center of all decisions I make. Why is this so important to you? Why is it important to?
I've been to the state convention several times. I know actually how it's formed. Like I said, I've been a precinct chair for a number of years. I know what a precinct convention is. The platform starts at the precinct convention. Essentially, people bring in different things they'd like to see in the platform. We vote on the precinct level. If several precincts come up with something similar, then it's pushed up higher to the state level, basically. There's actually a committee that sits on the state level, looks at several propositions are put forward, and whether it's worth actually playing with that. I know for a fact when I went to the state convention, I knew people on that committee said they spent hours going over the different things that came from around the state, was submitted by different precincts, vetted by people within that, saying this is what we'd like to see. I've also sat through at the state convention where they argued. And I do mean argued certain platforms. Sometimes it's almost miserable sitting there hearing minutia debated. Add a word, take away a word, things like that. But the point is, that platform represents the will of the people starting on the individual block and precinct level. And to just negate it and say, I'm not going to follow, it's essentially saying, I make my own rules. And I don't care what my precinct, what my neighborhood thinks. That's a killer for a party.
What percent would you say of elected Republican officials follow or don't follow the platform?
Well, based on, and this goes nationally, based on the approval rating of under 20%, from the national all the way down to the local, very, very little. People are just fed up with the fact that people are not following what they want. Good example is the current tax plan. We had to run that thing 2-3 times just to get the doggone thing. It's not that people didn't want to reduce taxes, but the elected representatives really didn't care. I'd say on the local level we have the same problem. Basically, once a person gets into office, they forget who sent them. And I've heard representatives say this before, I'm there in your place. I may not vote exactly what you wanted to, but what I say represents you. So I'm supposed to vote my conscience and know that I'm adequate, or you wouldn't have sent me there. And I've actually heard the state party say that. Trust me, I was sent by you. You know, obviously I must be trustworthy or you wouldn't have sent me. Therefore, wherever I vote, which is in my conscience, must be you because you sent me. But that kind of logic doesn't work. It goes back to another question you gave me, original intent. You don't vote an elected representative in to represent their conscience. You vote me in to vote in what your original intent was. Why'd you send me? What did you intend for me to do when I got there? That's what matters. Just like the original framers of the Constitution. I can interpret any way, and some people do, interpret any way they want to, but that doesn't matter. The question is the people who wrote it, what did they intend? So if I represent you, I'm going to represent the Constitution. I'm always looking at what was intended. What did you mean? What do you want me to say? Not what my heart tells me. And if I don't believe I represent you and I can't trust your judgment, I shouldn't run for office.
Okay, thank you.
Terrence, you said in your opening here, you've been a precinct chair and election judge for the past 6 years. Is that in Harris County?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When did you move to Montgomery County?
I always say that Harvey moved me upstream. Now, that's a misnomer. I did. I floated right down the river and came right in. But that's a little bit of a misnomer in the sense. It doesn't really represent my activity in Montgomery County. For instance, I ran for the SRHC 2 years ago and was also vetted by this very group, or at least some of you, to be in that position. I received probably about 80% of the vote of Montgomery County when I ran, meaning all those people who went from Montgomery County to vote on it. In fact, from my understanding, it was a razor slim margin. I carried 10 out of Chambers, all of Harris, and a humongous portion of Montgomery County voted for me. And I had to go through vetting committees that time also. Also, people like Bob Bagley. I set up friend groups on my Facebook page. I was going through and found him in there. I haven't touched that thing in 10 years. And I realized, good Lord, Bob's been in my life a long time. When I first started developing friends or activists, I started categorizing them by category so I could go through and send email. He was in the midst of it. And I had, like I said, I hadn't revised it. I'd forgotten that existed in Facebook. So there are people in Montgomery County who I've been a part of for a long, long time. When about 8 years ago I did a project with another person where I did 7 locations where I spoke to people as to why they should become precinct chairs. This area was the area I picked. I met at a little coffee shop down the street and talked to a group of 50 people, some of which later on became precinct chairs. We recruited 150 precinct chairs in 30 days. Harris County said that was the fastest influx they've seen of precinct chairs ever, because all of a sudden the roles were, because people were signing up. And I took this side and the other person took the other side of the city, because the city's so big. And I ended up, so I met a lot of the people who were active at that time, many who are no longer. So my point is, I've been active in Montgomery County in many different forms over quite a few years. Locationally, and within the Republican Party within Montgomery, it's just as a location, I'm new to this area. But one of the reasons why I said, actually it was supposed to be a temporary move. I have an 8-month lease. I plan on renewing it because I registered to vote. But when I got over it and said, you know, I know this gentleman, I know this gentleman, and several of the people already knew, I said, well, I'm practically home because I knew a lot of the people already here.
And we'll try not to hold your association with him
Against me?
against you.
Well, I'm praying. My wife's praying.
James.
James?
Now, the current county chair, we know, does solicit candidates on occasion for some offices. But generally, the position has been the Republican Party should not take a position during the primary. And of course, in our county, that's where the decision is made, largely.
During the primary.
And to get out the vote isn't really done until the general election, not the primary itself. So my question would be, what do you think the role of the county chair, the chairman of the Republican Party for the Montgomery County should be in terms of finding good qualified candidates for different offices, whether it be local, state, or national? If you think there should be no role, then who do you think should take that role? And if there should be a role, what kind of candidates would you promote?
It's kind of what was already implied earlier. How do you follow the platform?
Mm-hmm.
And as I said earlier in my 5-minute introduction, a lot of the candidates get in, run as a conservative, and we all know in order to win in Montgomery County or even statewide, you have to be a Republican. And most famous, of course, is Rick Perry, or Governor Perry, who was a Democrat for years, suddenly flipped party and suddenly was a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Being a Republican is a philosophical position. Many people, I think, are born into it. You grow up conservative in your values, the way you outlook. You just don't suddenly wake up one morning and say, oh, I'm a conservative. It doesn't work that way. You don't say, oh, I didn't mind abortion yesterday, but today I don't like it. Or today there's a number of positions where you formulate them over time. I could see somebody changing them, but certainly not the next morning when you're running for election. My point is, the party platform should always be the medium, not me. If the platform says, for instance, that we're a pro-life state, the candidate should be pro-life and not suddenly get in and say, I did a switch. So my point is, if there is and that's a good question, because somebody brought that up to me a week ago. If there's somebody in office currently that totally violates the platform, I would say the county chair should possibly prayerfully consider looking and recruiting other candidates and possibly be a little closer to the platform in that area. If we're pro-gun rights and suddenly somebody starts blasting in the NRA, there might be a consideration to find somebody who at least aligns with that. So basically, whoever runs should align with the platform, and if doesn't, should possibly find a replacement. Now again, Montgomery County chooses them. If they choose the other guy, that's understandable because of the primary for. Now, there's another issue there. Should the chair come out and actively campaign for somebody before the county's decided? No, that's not his job. The primaries do that. Primaries should be the one to make that selection. I should not openly, and this is a policy of many counties, the chair should not openly endorse anybody until the primaries make that decision. But can I go out and say, I did, and that'd go off a recommendation, and I'll tell you who can do this later. You have a vetting committee. There's another group that has a vetting committee. There are many people in the community that know these people. And if somebody comes to me and says, we have a candidate that's really good, then my answer to that's going to be the same. Then let's get them before the people. And I can't invest funds in things. Obviously, it's using party monies before the primaries decide. But what I can do is give that person encouragement to run and basically not speak badly about them.
Well, you said you can't invest funds. What's wrong with investing funds and hosting a debate for all the candidates?
That's absolutely, in a lot of those debates, and I'm currently in several of those,
Uh-huh.
most of the chambers apparently do hold debates. This group does an event where that's possible. Eagle Forum does an event. So a lot of those are done. The issue, this has been my life actually, is always asking what's not being done.
Mhm.
So if there's an area of the county that doesn't have that mechanism, yeah, the party should allow. I'd even suggest doing what you're doing, which I didn't realize that till tonight because I've not seen that, is posting YouTube videos of all the candidates. And let the people go in and actually see those videos. All of them, not just the ones you can get, but Magnolia and all the other sections. There's no reason why I can't. It's not like the old days where we wasted a thing of film. We could absolutely put them on YouTube, class 4 by category, and have the whole county in there. And that way anybody can go in and see their interviews and see the questions that are put to them. Questions like, what do you feel about the platform? How do you stand like you're doing tonight? So that's totally possible. But it would not be putting an endorsement, but we allow the whole city to see it.
What about questionnaires? Oh,
You say
okay.
that?
I'll wait.
All right. Dale?
Okay, you've got, obviously have many ideas, have observed some things where there's room for improvement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Have you approached Dr. Wilkerson and said, hey, can I come alongside you and help that? Or why did you decide to run against him versus trying to work from inside the current
There's actually a couple things going on there. I actually have tried to sit down with him, but unfortunately, he broached the subject of me doing that a week or so ago, and I didn't know the party was closing down for 2 weeks. I have been over to the office. I mentioned that to Mr. Bagley today. I went over there, but the office was closed, and they closed right after they did the picking of numbers, apparently. I went over Thursday to actually sit and have a cup of coffee with them just to get to know them a little better. And I can't. Apparently they're closed all the way through New Year's, but that is one of my intents. Now, as far as working alongside of them, the issue becomes, if somebody's worked a half a century a certain way, and somebody walks to the door saying, I want to change everything, it would be to his right to say, look, we've done this way, and this is the way we do it. And it also implies, and that you've heard that in the party before, that's really your intent. Why aren't you already doing it? Why aren't there some movement in that direction? And as from what I can tell, the things I'm proposing, there isn't movement in that direction. Now, as to why I'm running, I actually received a phone call from somebody who mentioned a number of people have approached them and asked me to run. I remember I mentioned to you in private before the thing started that I was asked a little ways ago, why am I going to run for office? I said, probably not. I dedicated most of my life to helping other people run for office. I'm not a politician. The reason I'm here is that people came to me and said, would you run? They've heard me speak, they know my character, they know I am. I was asked to run. It wasn't that I'm saying that I'm the very best person on the block. You have to have a little bit of that in you, you wouldn't run at all. But my point is, people came to me and said, we really want you to do this. And I looked at the situation and said, yeah, I'll do it. But in terms of working with them, I'll work with anybody. But the issue is, what has he done up to this point to show that's the direction that it needs to go? And I could be incorrect, but I haven't seen a lot of that yet.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Most of the questions, there's a lot of questions in here that really don't relate to things that you would have control over, but as the county chair, how do you feel about censoring some of the elected officials that are in position in the county? If they're not abiding by the platform?
The chair doesn't censor, the precinct chairs do. And the actual question, this actually came up in Harris and also came up in another area dealing with Joe Strauss. That needs to come from the floor. If I'm the chair and a number of people come to me and say, we want to, for instance, I'm not going to name somebody, but I can name you an example of somebody who actually a lot of my friends block walk for, and there was a proposal to censor that person in Harris. And it came from the precinct level. I got emails from the precinct chair showing me the proposal, asking me to show up to the executive council and vote against that person. That's the way it should happen. I don't think the chairs should be in the business of walking around saying, I want to get rid of somebody. Or I should censor them and say they're wrong. However, there's the flip side to that. If you do come to me and say, I think this person's not following the tenets of what the platform is, we'd like to do that, I shouldn't discourage it either. If you vote for that and you agree to that, then I should say that's the will of the precinct chairs. And nobody has a and the people watching it may not realize this, but in times past, it wasn't always encouraged for the precinct chairs to take that type of initiative to do that. And yet for me, like I mentioned earlier, everything in the state, the beauty of the Republican Party is truly a bottom-up mechanism. Things should start at the neighborhood, go to the precinct chair, work its way up to the executive council meeting. And if that council decides that they want to censor somebody because they don't adequately represent the party, they should have that right. And I should go and say, God bless you, that's the will of the people, and not do anything against those who do it. Should I publicly speak out? No, because again, my job is to promote the party, build the party, help those who are in office, but not necessarily speak out against people. And that shouldn't be my job at all.
Thanks.
All right. Talking about Joe Strauss, whether or not you support him, you said you do not. He has blocked significant conservative legislation. Do you think his not running for speaker again will cure all the ills of the GOP?
No, the person was going to be censored in Harris. I remember when they blocked her, she had her Tea Party endorsement. Actually, I was at a celebration of a Tea Party when they endorsed her. I pointed out on the emails that was sent to me because the person who endorsed her as a Tea Party is also a precinct chair, and I remember the quick response I got by email when I sent out the fact of who endorsed her and what's going on. The point is, when she got elected, immediately Joe Strauss had a dinner for her and retired all of her debt. He had a habit of that. When somebody's elected to back Strauss, or at least made promises, he'd help retire their debt. Which means that, and I know that for a fact, like I said, I was around when she was elected, which means that there are a lot of representatives sitting in Austin who Strauss backed, retired their debt, who basically hid their disdain for the, and that's why it's interesting to watch what's happening on a national level. It's like a cockroach and the light kind of effect. When you put somebody up there that shows what the truth is, like what's going on right now, it exposes all the representatives who have up to this time said, oh no, I'll vote for this, and then suddenly didn't. There's a couple bills lately that's been in the Congress nationally. These people swore them down, they're going to revoke Obamacare. Comes to a vote, what happened? Oh, we can't do that. And that's kind of what's going to happen with Joe Strauss. I think he covered for a lot of people in their attitudes. When he's gone, depending on who takes his place, if that's the type of person that suddenly says, here we stand, what may happen is you're going to see a lot of cockroaches exposed running for the dust, basically. You'll suddenly realize who's actually won, who was backing Strauss, who suddenly has to figure out a way to cover up their vote because people didn't know they were and Strauss was covering. The Counters Committee is the most famous for that. One of the people that they wanted to censor in Harris was on the Counters Committee. They just buried the bill on the bottom. Never came to a vote. And several of the people that Strauss retired the debt for are sitting on that committee. So Strauss alone will solve it. The Counters Committee has to be rearranged. The bills actually have to be allowed to go to a vote. And I suspect, like I said, the Strauss are doing some cover for a lot of people that don't adequately represent what the base believes. Just like on the federal level, we have the same problem right now.
All right.
Time-wise, doing a comparison with Harris County, which you certainly are familiar with, in their headquarters and the position. Montgomery County has only had one chairman for 50 years, and I don't know for how many years he's there, 7 days a week, however many days a week, I don't know, but it's perceived that he's there all the time. So could you give us a comparison of how other counties, possibly time-wise, their man, does he spend all the time there?
No, not at all. I have been, like I said, I've actually been on committees in Harrison. I'd see Paul come through the door, and I said, have you been home yet? And he said, no. He's a full-time lawyer, runs a practice. There's a lot of committees that are in Harris that aren't out here, and so there are weeks where all the committees meet, and he literally would be down at the office every night, not all day, but every night. And because I could drive from Harris all the way out to here, he and I both had the same logistical problem. I wouldn't go home. I literally go from my job down to the office, Republican office. I'd be there till 9. I get home about 10:30, 11. And that was normal for the party chair also, to do that. Now, we don't have a lot of those committees. We may need some of them because we are expanding. We just added 8 precincts. I could foreseeably see another 8 popping up in 2 years, and my point is, as the county grows, some of the things that they were doing for infrastructure may be needed here. But my point is, they did not have a full-time chair. Now, here's what he did, and it's something my wife used to tell me. A good executive doesn't do all the work, they appoint people who can do the work. There's already a couple of people who have come to me that have been within the party a long time who have offered to help me, and who do not any longer work full-time jobs. They're retired, they basically have the time to be around. I don't have to be perfect, I just have to know good people. And my point is, if my job as the chief executive is to know who to put in those slots, who knows what they're supposed to be doing, and preferably, again, that they support it. And if they don't support the platform and show their ugly side, I'll get rid of them. My job's to get rid of them if they don't. And I trust people like you to come to me and say, here's how I was treated and why, and for me to deal with it. That's my job. But to say that I have to be every place and something else that was remarkable, that I went to the party office recently, and a woman greeted me, a very nice woman, and she said she'd been working there since 1974. Well, in Harris County, you don't have that. They turn over office staff about every 3 months. They keep getting hired by national campaigns. And my point is, I hated that because every time I called down there, I'd get a different name. You have a wonderful pool of people who have been there 1974? I mean, good Lord, I was in high school when that lady started working in the office. So my point, and I'm not young, so my point is, you have wonderful staff that can be there all day, that are retired, know their jobs, can do the door greeting and stuff. My job would be to meet with the committees and things, and be around during the weekends and things when we do events. But I don't have to be there every minute, because you have a wonderful pool of already trained staff, way beyond what most chairs have already.
Okay, thanks. James?
You mentioned that the Republican Party, or the county chair, shouldn't take a stance on candidates in the primary. Well, after the general election, what was being spoken about earlier as Speaker of the House, there's both the Speaker of the House at the state House and Speaker of the House at congressional, national level. That certainly is not a primary issue. What should the Republican Party for Montgomery County do with regards to making sure, or doing our best to make sure, the correct candidates elected for Speaker of the House at either state or national?
Yes, basically, we need to send good people, SRAC and up. Everyone that represents us up there need to be people who, again, will back the chair, back the party position on everything. And that means basically, like I said, vetting them, putting up YouTube videos.
So for the county, though, the county chair, what's the best thing the county chair could do?
That's what I'm saying, is the county chair can make sure that the information's out there for people to vote on and get the right people sent up.
But not take a particular promotion of one candidate over another?
No, not until we know who the main candidate is. That is, once we pick a candidate, then that's our candidate, we back them. The only problem I would run into is if Montgomery County picked a liberal by accident. Then you're sitting here essentially putting somebody forward as a liberal and the county backed them and they voted for them. That could be problematic. But you've got to be real careful. You don't want to come out and start Trump's running into that right now, I'll put it that way. You've got to be careful about what you say publicly about somebody who is duly elected or appointed by the people. You don't want to come out and he's getting criticized heavily for that. If you are going to criticize somebody and say what they're doing is not good, come up with a good reason, educate the public as to why this is a problem.
Well, if the precinct chairs wanted to and voted to endorse a particular person to be Speaker of the House, would you, as county chair, be willing to promote that?
Yeah, that's what I said. My job is to go with what the precinct chairs want. They represent the people, I represent the chairs, basically. And my job is not to fight the precinct chairs. There are a number of what I'd call conservative precinct chairs now, and they're growing all the time. Anybody that's the party chair, they'd be a dang fool to go in there and essentially go against what half the precinct chair says that this is wrong. Now, if it's just bickering and partisanship, that's a different ballgame. But if you've got people coming and saying these people just are problematic when it comes, then yeah, the chair needs to back that decision. It's not the chair's job to go out in public and say, my chairs are crazy, don't listen to them. That just gives a bad stench. That's not the problem. He needs to go out there and represent what the will of his chairs are. And I don't care if it's a 51% majority, it's still a majority. You need to back what the chairs say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If that makes sense, I hope it does.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the questions wanted you to identify the most significant issues in this race, and one of the statements you made is, we need a party that leads, that takes an active role in the way the Republicans govern. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? Give some examples, please explain what you meant by that.
Basically, it goes back to everything we said up to now. That is taking an active role and pointing out when things vary from the platform. Saying this is what the platform is, this is what we stand for, and saying at times that the particular people that are there may not be representing it adequately. That comes down to public education. I bet you 80% of the place doesn't even know what the platform is. But there are particular areas they should know, like gun rights, things like that. They probably suspect they know. The fact is that the county chair needs to be aggressive in promoting the values of what the platform is. And promote it, educate the public. This is what we stand for. If you don't agree with it, start the process of changing it. But this is what we said statewide we agree with. And if you have, like we've already discussed, if you have candidates that are going up there that disagree with that, find other candidates. Find people who will back it. You know, basically throw 300 or your full weight of the party behind the guy that backs the platform. Go with the precinct chairs if they say somebody needs to be censored because they don't. But it needs to be, the county chair needs to say, this is who we are as Republicans. That hasn't been going on a lot. We have people running for in office currently. In fact, there's so many scandals right now, it's ridiculous. Because people have gotten in there for profit, to manipulate some things for power, and the party itself stays quiet because they are what we call them rhinos, Republican on name only, and that shouldn't happen. And the public is starting to suspect everybody because we stand, if you stand for nothing, then that's what you're going to get out of it is nothing. The party has to stand for something, and the chair should reflect that. This is who we are.
So then if we have two candidates running in a primary and one clearly adheres to the platform and another doesn't, you're going to remain neutral, or is that?
Well, in a primary situation,
how are you going to be active in that role?
In that role, basically, I'd encourage people that knows his record to speak out. You can put, like I said, you can create 2 videos and do, what you're doing tonight shows the best example of how to get that done. Come in with questions, sit down with both of them. Ask them pointed questions about how they support the platform in different areas and put it out there. You know, and it's easy to, I don't have to say as a chair, this guy's wrong. What I can do is do what you're doing tonight. Record them, come up with pointed questions, let them answer, hopefully truthfully, and then basically post it and say, go look at it. And then groups like yours, I know, will do due diligence and explain to the public, this isn't the platform, we need to vote away from them.
So the party should vet the candidates?
Absolutely. But when I say vetting, I don't mean go out. Vetting worries me in the sense that I was in Harris, they had a vetting committee, and they didn't play fair. So what I'm trying to say is, vet them in such a, you guys are trying to be impartial, but at the same time you're trying to find out a set of information. But you're doing it in a way that doesn't set me up for a say. In Harris at times there were some chairs in the past. Their vetting committee rejected people based off of religious bias and a few other things. That shouldn't happen. It should always be the platform that we're vetting. How do you stand against the platform? How do you feel about these areas? Does this enter? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Give them some scenarios. If this came up, how would you vote? And then put it out there and let the public decide. And I know for a fact with 2 Tea Parties and 7 women's groups, somebody's going to say, hey, this guy doesn't represent who we stand for. But the chair itself, I don't believe, should do that. The chair should say, I stand for this. Does this guy stand up for it? But I don't think the chair should get an inter-party squabbling. But trust me, there are seven women's groups, 2 Tea Parties, and somebody said there may be more than 2. But my whole point is there's more than enough groups to go to scream, this guy's definitely not what he should be.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
How do you feel about term limits and for local positions as well as state positions? What do you think the maximum amount of terms or the maximum number of years should be? And
That's a funny question considering our current circumstances of an incumbent that's been in there 50 years. I think there should be term limits in the sense that anybody that's incumbent has an automatic advantage. Name recognition, money, the infrastructure, get the word out. Maximum of years, I'm not sure about. I do know this. I'm at a certain age range where I'm going to wear out, and I know the current chair is definitely getting older. There is a point at which you have to acknowledge that somebody younger would be far better at it.
When would that be for you?
When my wife starts saying, honey, I want you home. The fact of the matter is, here's how I've worked
Is
it. I
that
have
78, 88?
No, I don't want to go to 90. I'm not shooting for 90. And the point is 10 years max probably for me. What I will work for, here's what I can tell you, and I have a history of that going back years. I worked myself out of a job. What I want to see is once the infrastructure is set up for the party to use the tools, for the party to function, when I see young bucks coming up that can take my place and do it, then I want them to do it. That is, I've always believed in my job is to train people to take my place. And that's true, even with this gentleman here, Mr. Bagley. I was going to help him with something tomorrow to show him a piece of technology I know how to use it, to help him with something. And my point is, ultimately, I want to teach him how to do what I set up for him today. My job isn't to do everybody's job. My job is to train people to do my job. And ultimately, what I'd like to see in a few years is somebody else, preferably a little bit younger, take my place and run the party even better. I have no, like I said, I didn't ask to run. They came and asked me to run. I have no desire to say when I'm my dying breath that I'm still the party chair. That's not what I want to do. What I want to do is help bring change to Montgomery County, to do it sensibly and sequentially, and then as soon as I see that infrastructure there, where I know it's stable, get out of the business. Let other people run it. I don't want to leave before it's down because I don't want to bring somebody in who'll just dismantle whatever we set up. And I'm going to do it with input like you got, with input from you and other people, so that we can see that it's there. And when people agree, yeah, we're doing good, I'm done. I'm older, I'd like to retire myself. And the county chair is not really a retirement position, it's a job, it works. And in that sense, I have images of going out and doing other things with my life, but this would be something I can give back to Montgomery County, that when I feel like that I've done my best, I'm done, I'm out of there. No, I do not want to be 90 or 85 even.
All right, thanks.
And I don't think you want me to be.
Just recently in November, we had a township election, and it was a nonpartisan race. It was pretty obvious it was a conservative against a liberal.
Yeah.
And the county party did not get involved. What would be your position on a race like that?
That was interesting because that goes back to what I was talking about earlier about the Democrats making inroads, because one of the candidates was definitely not what we'd call pro-life, and had taken some other activities to basically be against the platform. The background was there. They ran as a nonpartisan position, but we knew personally that they were not what we'd call fitting the platform in terms of their values. Again, that comes back down to good vetting. The party I feel like should have gone in, interviewed the candidates, found out their backgrounds. Who have you been involved with? What have you been doing with your life? What's your values in the party position, because you're going to be representing. And again, post that and let people see what do these people stand for. I don't like gotchas. Now we've got a person in there and we go, oh, they believe this, or oh, they believe that. When the person that Harris was going to censor, I actually went to her after the Tea Party backed her, and I said, I asked her, I said, you believe in abortion, don't you? She goes, yep. So she was honest about it. And this is a Republican, and I'm not going to say who, because again, I don't want to play that, but I said, and those guys block walked her. She said, look, I'm as conservative as you're going to get in my precinct. So either take me or not. She was blunt. But the point was, she had Tea Party back and everything else, and these guys were block walking for her, and yet she was definitely not in those positions. She should have been asked that question and vetted by the Tea Parties long before they block walked and did all that. Everybody turned a blind eye because the person she was running against was a little more liberal than her. Both of them are liberals. It was just a gradation of which type of liberal you wanted. Now she's on the calendars committee blocking one thing after another. And she's one of the major problems we've had up in Austin. My point is, they should have, that particular group should have sat down, ran a video, ran the question, and did a hands-off approach. They didn't have to back her. They could have put a video out there, say, here's where she stands, and then not do a doggone thing. They didn't have to block walk and do what they did. They block walk, endorsed her, and got her in office, and now she's sitting on the calendars committee, working for Joe Strauss to block things. That could have, the people who backed her should have said, I hope, if you win, you win, but it's going to be with our blessing.
Who is that?
That was Sarah Davis.
Sir? Okay.
She had total Tea Party endorsement at the time. And I can name you person after person, Blockwire, had solid conservative credentials. They got Sarah in. And I went to one of her meetings, I walked to the room, and I knew fully 50% of the workers. All of them, activists, but they backed her because they did not know. I was probably one of the few that asked her that question, and she said, I'm as conservative as you're going to get, so good luck. Not my precinct, you're stuck with me. And my point was, those workers, they shouldn't have been there. The party should have just backed off, the workers should have backed off and said, you get elected, it's not going to be with us. And not giving her the resources she had. There's a difference between giving all the resources, the block walkers and the workers to somebody that backs the platform and giving all that to somebody who doesn't. But they get elected, they get elected. That's why I said that her thing was gradations of liberalness, and she was blunt about it. I'm more conservative liberal than the person I ran against. And that's a lousy answer, but that's what she gave me. And she was honest, and I appreciated her bluntness. But to have the activists that work with her, and nobody said a word. They all kept their mouth shut and got her in. And now we have to eat it because of the calendars committee. So my point is, the party does not, as party chair, it's one thing to keep my mouth shut and not come out before it. It's another thing to go in and speak for somebody, help them fundraise, do all that should not happen. And especially if you know somebody is against certain key issues. You just sit and wait and let the party, like I said, put the videos out there and let the party decide. If they make a bad decision, make a bad decision, but at least the county won't have his fingerprints on it.
All right, thank you.
The Montgomery County budget, the county chair budget, have you had a chance to look at that? And if so, have you made any comparisons to maybe Harris County? Or?
No, I've heard that Montgomery County is extremely good in terms of fundraising. I'll be honest, when Harris went in there, they were in such bad shape, they had to borrow money from the state to fund coffee for their convention. They actually borrowed money to get the coffee concessions in there. They were broke, flat broke. It took the current chair at least a year. He raised $1 million. One thing that's cool about the current chair is he started holding meetings about every 6 months to a year to show the whole budget. One thing that hadn't been done in Harris was there had not been an audit in 15 years. You had the same chair running. That's another problem with running term limits. Another thing, you had the same man in there forever, and they had not run it. There was even a resolution on the floor that they bring auditors in, which got shot down. It wasn't until the new chairman came in that they finally brought auditors in. And they said, yeah, everything broke. So his first job was to go in and fundraise. He raised over $1 million. Immediately started making changes as to how the party functioned so they could support the candidates. And I was luckily a good friend of his. I've been to the current chair's home many times, and I got to see the inside of that. So in some sense, I'm not shooting totally blind, and he's a very good friend, the chair there is. So my point is that I'm not totally blind as to how that works, but the fact is your budget may be more robust. Now, as to how it's spent, that may be a different issue. In Harris, like I said, he puts out a spreadsheet. You can see every dime where it's going to, who was hired, how much it cost him, how that person's going to be used, and the precinct chairs grill him as to, do we really need this? Why are you doing it? And that kind of accountability needs to be there, especially even if the budget's larger in such a small county. In Harris, there's 500 precincts. Actually 550 if I remember right. We have less than 100. So if your budget's larger, the first question has to be, how's it being spent? Does it go to build out the party? If so, how? And again, there should be accountability to the precinct chairs. There is in Harris. There didn't used to be. But under the current chair, he opened all that up and said, here's what we're doing and why. And the chairs, seriously, hours of debate over it. Okay, we'll back you on this. But he showed total transparency in how the budget's being used. And that's how I believe
I suggest that you get familiar with the budget.
Yeah, oh, I will.
All right, thank you. James?
You know, as a Tea Party, we don't really take stands necessarily on social issues, but as a Republican Party, we certainly do. So I guess my question to you is, for those that watch this video, explain what your position is on the social issues, like you mentioned abortion, marijuana legalization, marriage, promoting any particular sexual agenda in schools and education, any social issue you think people would care about.
Ironically, in the Republican Party, there's a wide divergence. There's going to be super conservative people in the Republican Party and moderates, to say the least, almost a liberal, because this is the party.
Well, but the platform for the state
is very
is straight down the line conservative, right?
Now, so what I'm going to state is my personal opinion, is not necessarily what I would. And the interesting thing about the party chair is the fact that he really doesn't take stands on those issues.
Right.
That is, it's not his job to do it. Now, as a person, if the person watching this wants to know who I am as a person, I've always believed in marriage to one wife. I am on my second marriage, but my first wife actually committed adultery. When I walked out on her, I discovered she was the one who started a relationship. And she came back and I said, no, you've done this once, I can't trust you. And interesting enough, I came to Texas on 3 premises. I call it weather, women, and work. I basically got here, I arrived about this time of year in November to install hardware. I worked for a hardware company at the time. I went to a series of chains and installed the card swipes. I have a degree from DeVry University. And that's one of the reasons why technology doesn't basically bother me at all, and why I'm good at it even at my age, is I do have a BA in that. When I got here, I saw flowers blooming, roses in the garden downtown, and I could not believe, and unfortunately we didn't get that this year, but I could not believe you could go through a winter with green trees, wonderful weather, and very little inclement weather. And yet, where I came from, the trees were naked, as I put it, the grass was brown, and it was cold. So that was the first thing that enticed me. The other was work. I saw people selling cordwood on the sides of the highway. And I looked at that and I said, these guys work. And then later on I found that everybody networks. Some people own 2 and 3 companies. The art of the deal is very much, Trump practically wrote a book for the state of Texas. Everybody here runs something, they all network. And I love that about this. And where at the same time when I moved here, that was the beginning of when Sprint started, it didn't get to go through with this merger. And Sprint owns 10% of the real estate in Kansas City, so basically Kansas City did an early downward trend economically compared to the rest of the nation because of that merger falling through, Sprint WorldCom. And I just came out of DeVry, hoped for an internet technologies degree. Guess what? I couldn't get a job because Sprint was laid off by the thousands. I got down here and I said, well, shoot, down here, everybody, they even have world headquarters. A lot of the internet companies are headquartered here. And the other thing is women. I met my wife within 3 months of arriving. And I looked at my wife, said, I'll never find another one like her, and settled down immediately. Fell in love with her and have been with her ever since. So when I came down here, I got blessed in several ways. But there's also different things. The spirit down here, there's a theory that says that every city has a different spiritual flavor. And when I walked into this area, I felt a real freedom and just a real joy being down here. And I had the privilege of, I was based out of, ironically, not far from here, on 242. Every night I'd come and stay there, and then I'd travel all the way up as far as the Louisiana border installing this, and always drive home at night. And I fell in love with the whole state of Texas. Everywhere I went, I met interesting people, and loved the lush, the trees so large that the gas stations looked like little villages. And I'd never seen that, and just loved this place. I went home, moved in a week. They said, you're leaving? I said, yeah, I'm packing, I'm out of here. And it only took me a week to move down here. I didn't know anybody, started with nothing. So in that sense, I'm a migrant. So, but in that another sense, so I just love this place.
All right, good deal, thanks. Yeah, we got room for about 2 questions.
Okay, as a Republican, if you had to give up one of the following 4 principles, and it listed A, B, C, D, E, F, and I looked at your answer and I said, I didn't see that you gave up any of them.
Okay, now, I don't remember, there were a lot of choices. What particularly are you asking about?
Well, which one, it says, which one would you select to give up and why?
Yeah, but I don't remember all the answers, that's what I'm trying to say. There was like
Pro-life,
6 choices.
10% reduction in spending, Second Amendment, illegal immigration, foreign bases, and 10th Amendment.
Foreign bases was the one I'd give up. I'd never give up the 10th Amendment. Pro-life, no, that's a no give me for me. You don't do that. The foreign bases is one I can, but the other ones I looked at, I need the list, but the point is, what I looked at was 2 of them were basically constitutional founded principles. One was what I referred to as a biblical based one. So you definitely don't quibble over that. The reason I said foreign bases was it wasn't necessarily was it border protection?
Illegal immigration.
Yeah, no, I don't, that's ruining our nation.
So
In my opinion, it's ruining our nation.
the way I interpret it is the last sentence was the answer that he would give up. That would be, with all the bloat and spending, a 10% reduction can be found would reduce taxes, increase our economy.
Yeah,
Is that what you?
yeah, basically, yeah, I was looking through there going, I'm definitely pro-life, have been all my life. 10% reduction, no, we need that. I said there's too much bloat as it is. That's one of the problems with our budgets, the fact that and Trump's already dealing with that. He's reduced his White House staff by a massive amount. He doesn't take his salary. You can reduce bloat without even trying. So my point is, why give that up? Because I can guarantee you the party and everywhere is overspending. Illegal immigration, that has to happen. The wall has to go up. The only thing that I saw in that list that basically would be something that would give it one of the following corporate would be foreign bases. That's the only one I looked at that said that, but the other one's 10th Amendment, no way. And that's why I said foreign bases. That would be the only thing. Personally, I don't really like giving up any core principles. But that wasn't the choice I was given. If I had to give it, be foreign bases. Like I said, one's biblical, 2 are constitutional, and the other one, like I said, illegal immigration is killing us. So that's the only reason I said that. I don't like giving up any of them.
Okay, Bob?
I didn't like the question. I looked at it and said, how do you give up a core value?
I'm gonna go back to James. Did your question get answered sufficiently?
Well, you answered it more just now
Yeah,
than before.
okay.
And honestly, after I got done, I looked at it and asked the same question, and did I adequately answer that?
Yeah. Well, between mine and Dale's, yes.
Okay,
The answer, yes.
all right. I'm gonna
Good.
pass. I'm gonna pass then. It doesn't happen often.
Shocking. Let's go back to the precinct, what the precinct chairs want. And if 51% of them wanted A instead of B, you would go with A, right?
I'd go with what the chairs want.
Okay, what if they were wrong? Morally?
If they were wrong more, let's say they suddenly became pro-abortion. Let's say by
Well, not
chance.
even that extreme. They supported a candidate that really didn't fit the principles of the Republican Party.
Candidates are, well, first of all, if the precinct chairs voiced the fact that it's more likely they would censor a candidate than to back a candidate that was that way. I don't see a vote saying we're gonna vote for somebody and it turns out there's somebody off their rocker. If they're gonna vote for anything, I know it could happen, but I'm saying it's not as likely, it's more likely they'll want to censor. I can publicly come out and say I disagree with something and not be, like I said, the issue is that, but I'm gonna say it as a private individual, I'm not gonna come out and say, as the party that will the chairs, as an individual, I'm obviously not gonna go against my own principles. There's a number of areas I've had to take a stand in my life where it went against what everybody wanted. I don't have a problem with that. I always have done that. And that's in some odd bird. But on the other hand, like I said, that's as an individual. As the party, I go with what the party wants and the platform, what the chairs vote for. But it doesn't mean I can't come out and say, really, that was not a good move. Am I going to say it to the newspapers? I'd be hesitant to do that because I don't basically want to say I've got a bunch of chairs I disagree with. But can I, as an individual, would I sit down with you and say that was wrong? Yeah, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say I don't agree with what that's going to do. But my job is to bring party unity, not to subdivide the party. But I'm hoping that if the unity comes on the basis of how do you stand on the platform, that unity be true. That is, it won't be unity based on a false, we're going to back stuff the party doesn't agree with. The unity should always be based on how do you stand on the platform. And that's where the unity's gonna come from. I'm not gonna basically subvert my own beliefs in order to back stuff I don't believe in.
So can I ask a question on your unity? There hasn't been much unity between the party and the Tea Party. What is your feeling with that?
That's a key issue, I think, in the county. There's two different Ts. They're in total unity between the Tea parties. There has to be unity on one principle. Well, we have to agree on one thing. The Democrats need to be brought back. Basically, we have to defeat the Democrats. We have to build the infrastructure in the party to make sure Democrats don't take over. If we start on that principle, then we need to work on that basis. Am I going to get this your group to necessarily suddenly agree with some of the other ones? Not necessarily. You may see them as giving up some of their principles in some areas too, and they may feel the same way as you. But the premise we'll start with is, what does it take, number one, to defeat the Democrats? What does it take in order to basically win the youth and get them one back? Because we've got to agree on that or we've lost everything.
So are you willing to work with the Tea parties to be able to accomplish the goal of the Republican Party?
That's a lot of our block walkers, sign hangers. Like I said, these are people that I've known, including yourself and some of the others. All the party, the women's group and the Tea Party, do several things in common, and God bless them, and that needs to be recognized across the board. Tea parties put up the signs. They block walk like crazy. Whether they tell the party they're Tea Party, they're out there putting up signs and block walking. These are people who give to these candidates. We need that money. These are people who do your job. You're vetting the candidate tonight. The party needs that. And on that basis, they need to be welcomed the same basis as the Republican Women's Group, who essentially do a lot of the same functions. What do they do? Block walking, putting up signs, giving money, and vetting candidates. You're doing the same job. You're just doing it from a different perspective. But you're still trying to find the best candidates, still vetting them, still giving out money, and working yourselves to death to get the best people. So in many senses, you're doing the same job. You may not agree with everybody's methods, like your methods are definitely different than the other Tea Party, and the other Tea Party is vastly different in the way they do business, but you're doing the same purpose. And it's that purpose that everyone agrees on. We need to, A, keep the Democrats from getting further into Montgomery County. B, the youth is getting lost massively. C, we need to upgrade, a massive upgrade in the way we do our business. Or basically, people can't even find us in some cases. I said recently, and I agree with, the Republican Party should be the welcome wagon of the Montgomery County. You first moved there, somebody should be coming to you and say, welcome. How can we help you? And the party should be there welcoming. A conservative who moves into a liberal who moves into a conservative area statistically has been shown to become more conservative. In the same way, by the way, if a conservative moves into a liberal area, they become more liberal. If a liberal moves into a conservative area, they become more conservative. We want them to become more conservative. So how do you do that? By integrating them into our stuff, showing them more friendly, saying we're welcoming. Yeah, they're lib, but invite them to church, invite them to your groups, let them see what you believe. Most liberals don't even know who you are. They've been demonized by CBS, NBC, and all the others. Let them see the Republican Party, to the women's groups, to the Tea Party, all that as a welcoming entity that wants them to become a part of what we are, which is preserving American values. We are pro-family. Most people agree with that. So what I'm trying to say is I think all these groups, all 7 women's groups and all the Tea Parties work toward those goals. Building the party, preserving who we are, making sure the Democrats don't expect, getting out the youth. And definitely, I'm hearing from all sectors of the county, we need to update the way we do our outreach. We're getting left behind, and it's not our fault. It's just that by chance the Democratic Party's gotten way ahead of us, and we want to get in there and do some things quickly to keep the Democrats from putting candidates like you just brought up in the woodlands. We don't want any more of us. We need to know what's going on with these people and get rid of them.
So we're a little bit past our 2 minutes here. You want to consider that your closing?
I'll do that as well. Actually, I think that's a good close.
How about, or if you want to, take up to a couple minutes.
No, I appreciate that. I really appreciate the time you've given me. It is very, very difficult. I know you're trying your best to find somebody who's a conservative themselves in doing it. You mentioned earlier that in a group you don't really take stands, but yet your questionnaire says that you do, because you're really looking for somebody who does stand for the platform.
Well, we know people that watch this, what they're going to want to know.
And that's important. And I have spent a lifetime. My mom said, what happened to you? I thought, my mother's a Democrat. In fact, my brother's a Democrat. I'm in a family where I don't, It's funny, my brother came out of Columbia University as a lawyer of all things. There is no more liberal college in the country than Columbia as a lawyer.
Well, Harvard.
Yeah, that's right up there with it. You don't speak as a conservative on those campuses. Yeah, so my point is, I'm used to being, my mom said, what happened to you? She goes, here you are, I thought I raised you right, and you're totally against everything I raised. She's right, I am. And she says her on my Facebook, you'll read my face, you'll enjoy seeing my mom's post. My point is, I am a conservative. My mom acknowledges, my brother knows it's a subject we don't talk about a lot. I usually just ask him how the weather is. We do much better. My lifestyle for the last couple of decades has been given to basically work for conservative principles. Actually, most of my life, but more politically in the last couple of decades. What I'm asking for is to help the county to transform itself into something that's, like I said, update itself is the way I should put it. We're not going to transform, you're already good people. We just want to upgrade what we're doing, get out better social media, make sure you mention the budget. Yes, we need to take a look at that, find out if there is any blow, make sure the money is invested in places that everyone agrees across the party, and there needs to be transparency. I really would appreciate your consideration in voting for me. Some people watch my Facebook know that I'm up till 11 o'clock at midnight. I have plenty of energy to give to this county, and I want to give it.
Okay, awesome, thank you very much.